Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gora Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Narotamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Jayamudiraye. Nasthaprayeshva Bhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatyuttama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone this morning. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 1, chapter number 18, and today we're reading from text number 13. So if you can repeat after me. Tulayamalvenapi na swargam na punarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kimuta Shishaha Tulayamalvenapi na swargam na punarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kimuta Shishaha Tulayamalvenapi na swargam na punarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kimuta Shishaha. Anyone would like to?
Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kimuta Shishaha Tulayamalvenapi Nasvargam napunarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kim Utasishaha
Mothers.
Tulayamalvenapi Nasvargam napunarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kim Utasishaha Tulayamalvenapi Nasvargam napunarbhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Matyanam Kim Utasishaha
Tulayama.
Tulayama
To be balanced with. Lavena. By a moment. Api. Even. Na. Never. Svargam. Heavenly planets. Na. Nor. Apunabhavam. Liberation from matter. Bhagavat Sangi. Devotee of the Lord. Sangasya. The association. Martyanam. Those who are meant for death. Kim. What is there? Uta. To speak of. Ashishaha. Worldly benediction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Just to contextualize it, we're reading from the first canto of the Bhagavatam. The sages of Naimisharanya have come together to perform a great sacrifice for the improvement of civilization. Krishna had left the world, and when Krishna left the world, Kali Yuga began, so they were thinking of the welfare of all living entities. But they were doing so many things, they were not sure whether it would actually have an effect. It said they were doing so many yagyas, but they were feeling the only effect of this is that we're getting black from the smoke. And they were not feeling that the enlightenment, the hope, the vision for the future was coming. But when Sutta Goswami came, Sutta Goswami was a luminary of inspiration, and he began to speak. And when he began speaking the Bhagavat, then immediately they became very, very happy and satisfied just by hearing him. And after hearing him, this is the verse that they recite. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Purport. When there are similar points, it is possible to compare one thing to another. One cannot compare the association of a pure devotee to anything material. Men who are addicted to material happiness aspire to reach the heavenly planets like the moon, Venus and Indraloka, and those who are advanced in material philosophical speculations aspire after liberation from all material bondage. When one becomes frustrated with all kinds of material advancement, one desires the opposite type of liberation, which is called apunarbhava, or no rebirth. But the pure devotees of the Lord do not aspire after the happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom, nor do they aspire after liberation from material bondage. In other words, for the pure devotees of the Lord, the material pleasures obtainable in the heavenly planets are like phantasmagoria, and because they are already liberated from all material conceptions of pleasure and distress, they are factually liberated even in the material world. This means that the pure devotees of the Lord are engaged in a transcendental existence, namely in the loving service of the Lord, both in the material world and in the spiritual world. As a government servant is always the same, either in the office or at home or at any place, so a devotee has nothing to do with anything material, for he is exclusively engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Since he has nothing to do with anything material, what pleasure can he derive from material benedictions like kingship or other overlordships, which are finished quickly with the end of the body? Devotional service is eternal. It has no end because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of a pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there is no comparison between the two. Sutta Goswami was a pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his association with the rishis in Naimisharanya is unique. In the material world, association with gross materialists is veritably condemned. The materialist is called Yosit Sangi, or one who is much attached to material entanglement, women, and other paraphernalia. Such attachment is conditioned because it drives away the benedictions of life and prosperity. And just the opposite is Bhagavat Sangi, or one who is always in association with the Lord's name, form, qualities, etc. Such association is always desirable, it is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal of life. I'll just repeat that last sentence of Srila Prabhupada again, who concludes the purport in the most powerful way. He says, such association is always desirable, it is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal of life. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So with your permission, we'll try to share something on this very, very special verse of the Bhagavatam. You may be aware, there are 2 verses in the Bhagavatam of the 18,000 that are repeated twice in the text verbatim. 2 very, very special verses which appear twice, exactly in the same form. You may have guessed that one of them is the one on the board. Let me tell you the other verse that appears twice in the Bhagavatam. It's a statement by Krishna, and he makes this statement twice in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. He makes this statement to the wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas, and he makes the same statement to the gopis of Vrindavan. And what statement does he make to them? That's repeated in the Bhagavatam. Shravana darshana dhyanan mai bhavo nukirtanat nathatha shanikarshena pratiyata tato grihan. When the wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas wanted to give Krishna their food, their items, they wanted to give Krishna their very selves, they wanted to just completely be with Krishna and leave everything behind, then what did Krishna say to them? Shravana darshana dhyanan. Just hear about me. Just take my darshan. Just meditate on me. Mai bhavo nukirtanat. With your heart, chant about me. Na tata shanikarshena. It's not by physical proximity that you will be close to me. Prati yata tato grihan. And therefore I'm telling you, go home. Go home. And just hear about me, remember me, and chant about me. When the gopis heard Krishna's flute, Karshan Venu Svaner Gopi, Krishna under the Vamsivat played his flute on the fifth note, and the gopis came running. Then Krishna said the same thing to the gopis. Why have you come? Go back, hear about me, meditate on me, take darshan of me, and chant about me. It's not just by coming and running to me, you'll be close to me. Their responses were different. The wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas, when Krishna told them to do that, what did they do? They went home. And when the gopis were told this by Krishna, what did they do? They didn't accept it. Both are important lessons for us. In the Bhagavatam commentary on this, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada wrote that both of them achieved pure love of Krishna. The example of the wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas is important for us because it helps us to realize that ultimately at our stage, really what we have to do is hear about Krishna, meditate on Krishna, chant with bhav. Mai bhavo nukirtana. Try to chant with some heart. And by doing that, we'll be close to Krishna. So the wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas, they show us the example that that's how we connect with Krishna. Even sometimes we may feel we're very far away. But the example of the gopis is also very, very important for us because it helps us to realize that gradually from all of that hearing and chanting and meditation on Krishna, our greed for Krishna, our desire to be with Krishna should be so great that even if Krishna tells us to go away, we can't go away. So both examples are very, very important. And in this way, this verse is repeated in the Bhagavatam twice. The other special verse in the Bhagavatam that's repeated twice is the verse that's on the board today. This verse appears in the first canto and it also appears in the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, and therefore we can understand it's an incredibly, incredibly important verse. And what is being glorified in this verse is that Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya, the opportunity, the great fortune in one's life arises when they're able to come in contact with a devotee of Krishna. This is perhaps the most important day in the sojourn of a conditioned soul in the material world. The most important day is the day they come in contact with a devotee of the Lord. Because that day is not just a life-changing day, it's a destiny-changing day. The other day when we were speaking on the Bhagavatam, we were talking about Madhurya Kadambini. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini, before he begins talking about the journey towards pure love of Godhead, the place he begins is by talking about where does devotional service start? How does devotional service begin? What is the root cause of triggering one's journey back to Godhead and back to awakening pure love for Krishna? It's a very, very important question to have the answer to. Because when we have the answer to this question, the first thing that it gives us is gratitude. The second thing it gives us is a clue as to how we can continue our spiritual journey. And the third reason this answer as to how devotional service begins, why it's very important, is because it gives us a clue as to how we can help all the conditioned souls in the creation make the same journey back home, back to Krishna. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur asked the question, how did we all end up here? How did we begin this journey? How did we become situated on this path of bhakti? And then he goes into a dialogue and he explains different reasons that someone may give. So someone may say, it's simple. The reason you're practicing spiritual life now is because you practiced spiritual life in a previous life. So you're just carrying on. Sounds simple enough. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, no, we have to dig a little deeper. Because how did you begin in that life? Well, I began in that life because it was a previous life before that. Okay, but then how did you become in that life? Because of the previous life. But where? There must have been one life where you began. So he says, I'm not satisfied with that answer. So then he says, well, the scriptures explain, Yadrichaya, the first life you begin in this material sojourn where your spiritual life begins. How does it begin? By some good fortune. So there, are you satisfied?
No.
That's how you began devotional service, by some good fortune. He says, no, but you have to say, where did that good fortune come from? How did that good fortune arise? So he says, someone may say the good fortune arise or came from material piety. You did a lot of good activities in this world, you did a lot of good material pious activity, and therefore you got the opportunity for devotional service. He says, no, I'm not satisfied. Because piety is material. And how can something material trigger something spiritual? So he says, I'm not satisfied. He said, maybe someone will posit that the cause of one's beginning in devotional life is Krishna's mercy. That's not material. Krishna's mercy is entirely spiritual. So are you satisfied? He says, no, I'm not satisfied. Because Krishna says in the Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti na priyaha. Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone. So then why isn't everyone a devotee? Why isn't the whole world in the Krishna consciousness movement? He said, no, I'm not satisfied with that. It cannot be Krishna because Krishna is equal to everyone. So he says, then maybe the reason that one ignites their spiritual journey is because of Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. Because of the association of a devotee. And he says, yes, this is the right answer. The association of a devotee is what triggers one's spiritual journey. Krishna Bhakti Mula Hoya Sadhu Sang. Krishna Prema Janma Teho Puna Mukhya Ang. Kaviraj Goswami says, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula, the very root cause of devotional service is the association of a devotee. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I want to go a little further. Still, there's more to the story. So he says, yes, it's a devotee that triggers the journey, but actually, it's not a devotee that triggers the journey. It's bhakti within the heart of a devotee that impels a devotee to reach out to others, that is what triggers the journey. So what is the cause of bhakti? Bhakti itself. Bhakti can only be caused by bhakti. And who is the carrier of bhakti? The bhakta. And therefore Jiva Goswami says, Krishna's mercy follows the mercy of the bhakta just like a thread follows a needle. Devotees are like a needle. And when they penetrate your life, then you can understand Krishna's mercy will also descend in your life. So devotees, amongst many words we could use to describe them, are incredibly dangerous. Sometimes I call devotees the agents of Vamandev. Because Vamandev came to Bali Maharaj and he said, I only want 1 step of land, 3 steps of land, 3 steps. Why 3 steps? Because if you walk 3 steps and measure it, that's how much you need to lie down. So I only need space to lie down. What other necessity in life is that I need to rest the body, that's it. So just give me 3 steps of land. And what did he do? He took over everything. So the devotees are like the agents of Vamandev. They come into your life. It's okay. You don't have to change your life. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, no, you just have to add. Just add a little bit. Just add a little bit. And before you know it, they've added so much, there's nothing left. There's nothing left to take away. Vaishnavas are incredible. Once Brahmananda Prabhu, he was in Vrindavan and he was giving a class, and for those of you, all of us, many of us, we've all heard from Brahmananda Prabhu and how much love he had for Srila Prabhupada. So one day he was giving a class in Krishna Balaram temple and he was talking about Srila Prabhupada, and then someone in the crowd put their hand up and they said, Brahmananda Prabhu, the way you're speaking about Srila Prabhupada, to us it seems for you Srila Prabhupada is God. And then he paused for a moment and he said, no, we made that mistake. We made that mistake at one point, equating Srila Prabhupada with God. But then he became very emotional and he said, actually, for me Srila Prabhupada is not God. For me, Srila Prabhupada is greater than God. Because Srila Prabhupada came to the Lower East Side to save me. And then he just broke down crying. That is the Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is reaching out. The bhakti within the heart of a devotee is impelling them to an incredible level of intensity to reach out to others. Just like yesterday we were coming on the coach back and Janananda Maharaj, he was appreciating Vaisheshika Prabhu so much. He said, Vaisheshika Prabhu is tireless. He gave the morning class, then he gave a seminar, then he came out with all the devotees on Sankirtan. Now he's doing an evening program, and I bet he's going to be there for Mangalarti as well. And so Maharaj was appreciating His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. And I was thinking, when Maharaj was saying that, I was thinking of Guru Kripa Prabhu, who once told the story of how once he was serving Srila Prabhupada in the middle of the night, Prabhupada called him. Prabhupada rang the bell and he called him. And so Guru Kripa Prabhu came into the room and Prabhupada said, why are you sleeping? He said, Prabhupada, it's night time. Prabhupada said, it's also night time for me. I'm not sleeping. He said, Prabhupada, I was working all day. Prabhupada said, so was I. He said, but Prabhupada, you're a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, why are you not a pure devotee? So he said, Prabhupada, what shall I do? Prabhupada said, go back to sleep. It was an incredible level, Prabhupada's intensity. Brahmananda Prabhu also tells another beautiful story. He said once he was with Prabhupada from the Morning, Prabhupada gave the class. He was just going the whole day, meeting people, lecturing, writing letters, translating, organizing, solving managerial problems. He said they were returning from a program in the evening. Brahmananda Prabhu and Prabhupada were both in the back. And Brahmananda Prabhu is, as they would say in India, healthy. And so, Srila Prabhupada was next to Brahmananda Prabhu, and Prabhupada began dozing off. And as Prabhupada was dozing off, he and finally he was in Brahmananda Prabhu's lap. Prabhupada, like there. So here was Brahmananda Prabhu in the back of the car with Prabhupada in his lap. And Prabhupada was and he looked at Prabhupada and he said, every last bit of energy, Prabhupada just expended to just reach out to others. He didn't hold any energy back. He just gave everything. And in that moment, he realized the intensity of bhakti that is within a devotee's heart that impels them to just keep reaching out, keep going, keep giving. And this is why Vaishnavas are so incredible. Sometimes we look around at each other and it's difficult in a community, in the association of devotees. It's easy to become so familiar with each other. It's easy to take each other for granted. Every Vaishnav is so special because every single Vaishnav is the hope. A Vaishnav is the hope of a conditioned soul. Because without all the devotees in here, there's no hope for the world. Someone may think, I'm a very small devotee, I'm very insignificant. There's no such thing as a small devotee. Did you know that if you go into outer space and you light a candle, you can see it 12 miles away? That's strange but true. Because it's so dark. Even one candle, you can see it 12 miles away. It has that much potency. In a dark age in which there's no hope, every devotee is like a candle. Every devotee is giving so much light to the world. And so, yesterday all the devotees went out and there were so many incredible stories, so many stories of people who were just waiting to meet a devotee. And this is the business of the devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement, to somehow reach out to others and give others the opportunity, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, without this, no one can begin. No one can begin their spiritual journey. And when we do this, we experience an incredible connection with Krishna. I was thinking about why is sharing Krishna consciousness and reaching out such a transformational thing in a devotee's life. Vaisheshika Prabhu says book distribution is high sadhana. Why is it so high sadhana? I was thinking, and there can be many, many reasons. But one reason that occurs to me is that in many devotional services that we're doing, we're serving Krishna. We're doing something for Krishna. We're trying to please Krishna. But when we're preaching, it's not just that we're serving Krishna, but Krishna is actually teaming up with us, or we're teaming up with Krishna in order to serve others. Sharing Krishna consciousness is so special because we become a team member with Krishna. We become partners with Krishna. If I think about my friendships in Krishna consciousness, then I can say without a shadow of a doubt that my deepest friendships in Krishna consciousness are friendships in which I was together with devotees trying to help conditioned souls. When we come together to serve the conditioned souls and reach out, there's a very special bond that develops. And I think in preaching Krishna consciousness, somehow Krishna just becomes so active in the life of a devotee, and we experience a very, very special connection. I wanted to share this. It's almost what we would call a transcendental drama. Once in 1977, Prabhupada wrote a letter to the book distributors, the BBT, because they had done an incredible effort to reach out and give many, many books. So Prabhupada wrote a beautiful letter to the BBT and Rameshwar Prabhu. But what they discovered many years later is that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was Prabhupada's secretary at that time, he had sent the letter from Prabhupada, but on the back of the letter he had wrote another note to Rameshwar Prabhu specifically. So Prabhupada had wrote a letter of appreciation, and on the back of that letter there was a note to Rameshwar Prabhu. And this was what was written on that note. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj writes to Rameshwar Prabhu, to Rameshwar Maharaj, Prabhupada commented on the Sankirtan newsletter number 11, every week the highest. Prabhupada was clearly amazed by the scores. This Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he said, I said, Srila Prabhupada, this is the perfect reciprocation. You are working so hard, day and night, to write these books. And all the devotees are working day and night to distribute them. Prabhupada said, I am writing the drama and they are playing on the stage. It's so beautiful to think that when one reaches out, one enters into a transcendental drama, and Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are the ones who are the architects of that drama, and everyone gets to play a part in that drama. So it's such a beautiful thing to reach out. It changes our heart when we reach out to others. It changes the hearts of the conditioned souls who we reach. And not just that, it changes Krishna's heart. When Mahaprabhu was in the gardens of Gundicha and Prachaparudra Maharaj came, and then Prachaparudra Maharaj, he recited this verse, Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravana Mangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Kranantiye Bhuri Dajana. He glorified those who are reaching out, the Bhurida, the magnanimous souls who reach out and share with the world the name, fame, form, qualities and pastimes of the Lord. And when Mahaprabhu heard this verse, he said, Bhurida, Bhurida, you are Bhurida, you are a magnanimous soul. And Mahaprabhu's heart was changed hearing this verse. When we reach out, we change our heart. When we reach out, we change the hearts of the conditioned souls. And when we reach out, we change the heart of Krishna. And this is the change in heart that the Bhagavatam talks about. I'm just going to read one final thing for you, and then we can share some reflections. I think it might be interesting for you. Today we talked about Madhurya Kadambini, and we talked about how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that only by association of a devotee does one begin the journey to pure love for Krishna. And then in the Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes on to explain all the stages. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the 8th shower, the final installment of the Madhurya Kadambini, he explains what happens when one develops prema, pure love for Krishna. And so he describes some of the symptoms. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then explains that someone who develops prema, their prema is so powerful that it acts like a magnet. And Krishna has to appear before that devotee because of the love that they have. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then explains that Krishna appears before the devotee. And then what he does is he explains what Krishna says to the devotee. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, when one has prema, Krishna is forced to appear. And when Krishna appears, this is what he says to the devotee who has prema. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually writes what Krishna says. Would you like to hear?
Yes.
This is what Krishna says to the devotee who has prema. Oh my best devotee, many births you have given up, attachments, house and wealth to attain me. For the sake of my service, you endured untold miseries such as cold, wind, hunger, thirst, and pain. Maintaining your life by begging, you tolerated countless insults and abuses from other men. In return for all your sacrifice, I am unable to give you anything. I've simply become your debtor. Though I'm unconquerable, today I've certainly been conquered by you. Now I'm taking shelter of the kripa of your excellent character and gentle conduct. That's amazing. I read this and it was, I don't know, I can't second guess what Krishna is referring to here. But here Krishna says, for the sake of my service you endured untold miseries such as cold, wind, hunger, thirst, and pain. Can you build a picture in your mind of what this may be referring to? Maintaining your life by begging, you tolerated countless insults and abuses from others. In return for all your sacrifice, I'm unable to give you anything. I don't know if that is referring to the Sankirtan devotees. Maybe it is. But one thing we can say for sure is that when we reach out and when we make a sacrifice, when the intensity of bhakti is in our heart is so great that we feel we can't rest. When we come in front of Srila Prabhupada every single day, I asked Kishore Prabhu. Kishore Prabhu is one of our very dear disciples of Srila Prabhupada in the manor, and I asked him once, how do you feel on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day? And he said something which I'll always remember. He said, I feel challenged. I just feel challenged. Because whenever I come in front of Srila Prabhupada, I just feel challenged to do more, to be more, to serve more, to sacrifice more, to reach out more. And he said, every time we come in front of Srila Prabhupada, we feel challenged. So, the devotees are trying to do that, trying to reach out, challenged by the sacrifice that Srila Prabhupada made to make more of a sacrifice to share Krishna consciousness with others. And it's really transformational, it's really high sadhana, and it's something which clearly attracts Krishna's attention and allows us to be part of the transcendental drama. And so we thank Srila Prabhupada for giving us the opportunity to really share Krishna consciousness and be part of this. And we thank all the devotees, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, all the senior devotees, the leaders, and all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement who work so hard to give us all an opportunity to be part of the Sankirtan movement, because it's the greatest fortune and it's the best job in the world. So we have maybe, oh, we don't have any time. I think, yeah, it would have been so nice to hear from devotees.
We can take one or two reflections about.
Maybe, yeah, Vaisheshika Prabhu and Maharaj, if you could both share.
Sorry, I had to step out of your class for a few minutes, so maybe you did mention it, but in terms of bhakti, creates bhakti through the, you can say, agency of the Vaishnava devotee. But it seems like many people, what is it that determines those who get into that net? So many people seem to miss it. Is there some other factor involved why some people are coming to the association of devotees? Some people don't. They leave their body before there's any, is there some other factor involved? Do you get the point?
Yeah, I got the point. Right.
You know, as I say, you've got...
Is that, why do some people take it and some people not?
Well, some people don't even know about it. They don't get even a chance to say yes or no, it seems like.
Causeless mercy is somewhat of an inconceivable topic. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does explain that there are different types of sukriti, piety. And he explains that a specific type of piety, bhakti unmukhi sukriti, a specific type of piety makes some souls very, very receptive. So for example, if someone has done some unknowing service or someone has unknowingly had some contact with the Bhagavat culture in some way, shape or form, then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says they become somewhat like dry firewood. But dry firewood in and of itself cannot catch fire. But all it requires is a little spark. And when that little spark comes, then they... immediately ignite. So Sukriti can make one very, very receptive, but still one will require the causeless spark of a devotee coming into someone's life. And what determines whether the devotee goes there or here, whether this person gets it or that person gets it, we can just say it's good fortune.
We have to spread more good fortune.
And that's why it's not a small thing. It's like walking out of the door and, as Vaisheshika Prabhu says, touching the pavement. It's not a small thing. Because, like sometimes I used to watch the Sankirtan devotees, not just because I was spacing out on the street, but sometimes I would just love to watch the Sankirtan devotees distribute books. Because it seems like a very small, kind of clinical interaction. You kind of do something funny to stop someone, crack a few jokes, create a connection, give them a book, take a donation, and within a few minutes it's all done and dusted. But I used to watch it and think, this moment in the life of a jiva is a life-changing moment. And so sometimes even, I think, like we're out there and even we don't realize how amazing it is. So every time we go out, it's incredible because it gives opportunities. So these were some thoughts. I don't know if you're satisfied with that, Maharaj.
Go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I feel compelled to just say, please live long, Sutapa Prabhu, because we see in you the continuance of the mood of Srila Prabhupada in the next generation, which is a brilliant combination of absorption in the relevant aspects of the Shastra combined with realization from having gone hungry, been insulted, begged from street corner to street corner, and a kind of powerful leadership that your countenance and presence commands. So thank you very much for moving about, and I think this goes for everybody in the room. From our hearts, we wish you long life to be able to carry on this mood everywhere you go. And I hope that's many, many places. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Just end on one statement. His Holiness Jai Advaita Maharaj, he once said to me, he said, the greatest gift you can have in your life is people who have more faith in you than yourself. And so I think all of us, the faith that especially the disciples of Srila Prabhupada and those who have given their life to Srila Prabhupada's service, the faith that you put in us is the faith that is carrying us and empowering us and encouraging us and enthusing us. And so if we're able to do anything, it's only because we're standing on the shoulders of giants. So it's really, we hope we can just do 1% of what all of you did to serve Srila Prabhupada. And actually what all I want to do is try and experience the magic that we hear about of the 60s and 70s of how the devotees served Prabhupada without any hesitation, and the magic that came from that. It's an incredible time to hear about it, and we just hope, I don't know how it will happen, but we hope that someday that magic of Srila Prabhupada coming together with those who are completely sold out to Srila Prabhupada, and that combination and what it creates, the magic, the Krishna magic, we hope that will happen, and we pray for your blessings. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Sutapa Prabhu ki Jai. So, just a couple of reminders, because they're important ones for this morning. So breakfast